Hello, YouTube audience. Bonsai Whisperer here. Today, I just bought this tree. It is a citrus autifolia bears. Let's see if I can get this focused. Let's see. Focus on this. It's difficult to get it focused, but it is a lime tree, which is in Pacific Northwest. It's basically an indoor tree. So if you are trying to get into a hobby and you are thinking about bonsai, definitely be warned that this is a addictive hobby, especially when you get into making your own bonsai. You may run into the risk that you cannot stop. I feel that I am currently in such a situation because I have a lot of outdoor trees, which is in the winter you don't really need to take care of them much because in Seattle it rains a lot. So you may not need to water them much. You may need to give them some winter protection for cold, but other than that, not much you need to do, and not much you can do too. The reason is in the winter all the trees are dormant, and their leaves and their roots, they all need to stay protected. You basically, for an outdoor tree, in the winter you cannot work on it much. You cannot prune too much of the leaves. If there are leaves, you definitely cannot work on the roots, because the roots are the most susceptible to cold damage, and if you weaken them in the winter, basically you are risking to kill the trees. But a tropical tree or an indoor tree, because there's no dangerous of getting frost or cold damage, you can work on it year round. A big reason I bought this tree is because it is an indoor tree, and I haven't been able to work on a tree for several weeks, and I feel that it's very difficult to stand not working on it. So I just got a indoor tree so I can work on it. So it's just a story about the addictive nature of this hobby. So let's get into it. So first I want to give it a spin, and basically this is the tree before any work. So this is the tree. It is a very beautiful tree, very healthy. So the more healthy the tree is, the more we can work on it. It has some very nice characteristic. So I haven't really examined the root base, but you can see there's some curvature on the trunk, and on very low, maybe just an inch above the soil, there is this long branch coming out and curling downward with a long whipping branch. That's very characteristic of this tree. So looks like it's most obvious to make this into a cascade or semi-cascade tree, which you have a long branch coming downward, either horizontal to the lip of the pot or going beneath the pot. So this is either a cascade or semi-cascade tree. But there's also a pot that's above the pot, which would be relatively small. So you can see this tree is growing very tall. If we are going to make it a semi-cascade tree, that means most of these foliage, the foliage on top, this tree is probably 60 centimeters high. I don't really know feet, so I guess it's maybe 2 feet tall. And if we make it into a semi-cascade, most of the top is going to come off. So that's one option. The other option is, of course, if we give up this branch, the branch that's long whipping and coming downward, we can take off this branch or keep this branch but use it as a sacrificial branch because it's very low on the trunk. Keeping this branch has the advantage of making the trunk of the tree thick, and ultimately we are going to cut it off. If we do this, and this would be basically a informal upright tree, so basically a S-shaped tree, which is also an option. The leaves are very big at this point, so a big leaf tree tend to make a bigger bonsai because it will be more in proportion. If you have big leaves, you want to make the bonsai bigger. So it's not a bad option to keep basically all the height and and grow it as a informal upright tree. That's a pretty good option. But I personally, at this point, I want to keep the tree a little bit lower, a little bit smaller, so I probably try to make it into a cascading tree using these branches, which may or may not be the best choice, but we'll see as we work on the tree. So as usual, the first step would be picking the tree out of the pot. Okay, it's very good. It's not very pot bound, so it's good. It's very easily come out of the pot, and now we need to tease away the surface soil and examine the root base. Oh, it's very loosened, very nice. It's not pot bound at all, so it's very easy to work with. So I'm just using a rake to rake out the soil. In the radial direction. To get them out a little bit. If there is a tap root, we will need to cut out the tap root. There seems to be a very big root here. Ooh, wow. Nice root. Some very big roots here. This is probably hitting the root base. The root base is where the tree starts for bonsais. So let's see. We're seeing the root base. It's not too deep. It's so the tree was buried here. So we maybe have go down half an inch. About a little bit more than 1 centimeter. Then we find the root base. You can see some big roots coming out. Pretty nice roots. Kittens are extremely curious of what I'm doing. Okay, just continuing to rake out some of the roots. Looks like the root base is pretty nice here, and we can also rake out the roots from the bottom. Oh, it's very loose, so it's not pot bound at all. It's not very pot bound, so it's good. Try to rake it out from the center. Ooh, some roots are still growing, so you can see this is a growing tip. Some roots are still growing because this is indoor tree. May not know very well the season. So there are some growing roots. When you see growing roots, it's not a good sign for you to repot, but there are only limited amount of roots that's growing, like this white root. This this very white one, it's definitely a growing tip, but not high percentage of the roots are growing. So I hope this is fine to repot. Okay, this is not too difficult to get into a bonsai pot. You first need to get rid of all these there is a thick root here. I think this will be the front of the tree. It probably go this direction, so we have a cascading branch. So the roots are pretty nice. Still raking out the roots. Okay. The root base are pretty evenly distributed. There's some, I think the reason why this side has a long branch grow out is because on this side we have several very long roots growing out. The leaf growth, the roots grow kind of mirror the branch, the growth of the leaf. So this side you have a long branch, so maybe this side you also have a long root. So that's that. I can at this point I can actually wash the roots a little bit to get them out. I'm going to wash the roots a little bit to get the rest of the soil out. Let's see. So we can examine the root base better. Very healthy root system. Ooh, a lot of fiddle roots. Very nice root system. So it looks like that. Not many roots growing down, so it's a good news for bonsai. It's not like you have a huge root growing down, so you need to cut off a big one. I guess this may be a cutting, so there's actually not a big tap root growing downwards. So if that's the case, we can set this as the front. I like this as the front, and on this angle we can start cutting out a lot of the branches with a branch cutter. Okay, I'm going to keep this long whipping branch and also maybe this tiny branch, but shorten most of the other branches. I want to showcase kind of this here. This curve here. Need to think about which is the head. If the thing is going that way, the whole tree is going that way, it should not have too much movement on the other direction. It's like here, like that. So let me try to explain that. So this tree, if it's a semi-cascade style or cascade style, the whole tree should be going towards the side of the cascading branch. So on the other side, we should not have too much branches here. So if this is the first branch on the other side, then the whole other side should be should not be too heavy. So if it's growing like that, that would be pretty nice. This way, maybe here would be the front of the tree. Okay, I can start cutting a little bit of the branches off. This is stuck in. There is this little branch. When the main trunk bifurcate into the branch that growing upward and the cascading branch going sideways, there is a tiny branch come out here, which is not doing anything, and also it's blocking the front, so I'm just going to easily take it off. That would be fine. When the cascading branch make the first curve, there is this tiny branch that come out, which has no leaves on it. Let's see. There is no leaf on this branch. this branch has no leaf and it's too weak. I'm going to get rid of it if in the future there could be other things grow from this, but currently there's no use for this branch. I'm going to cut off. In the back there's also one of these branches that come out on the upright trunk, so I'm also going to get rid of it because currently it has no use. In the future there may be new things growing out, and then we will see at that point. So I'm trying to make the top. There are several important decisions. So now I'm just cleaning up all these branches that has no leaves coming out, which currently has no use. And this would be the front. This would be the front. Here it branch into two, but let's see, branch into two, and this branch bifurcates quite nicely. So, but there is this inside. Just get rid of these leaves. That's not really necessary in there. So some small leaves. The top is going to be severely pruned back. Let's see. Trunk structure is pretty nice. This branch, so the main trunk go up first, bifurcates into a semi-cascading branch and a upright branch, and the upright branch bifurcates again into this zigzag-shaped branch and this relatively straight branch on the left. There is this relatively straight branch come out and it bifurcates nicely into two branches, but there is, before that bifurcation here, there is this little branch that's going back to the tree itself. Try to point it out here. This branch is growing backward to the tree itself, so we can eliminate it here. Okay, that's that. And this bifurcating branch, I will need to cut it back somewhere. Not difficult. Maybe cut it back here so that you have at least two pair of leaves that can generate, on the base of which you can generate new branches. Just leave a little bit for dieback and then cut it off. Okay. So this is that, and I cut off one side, The other side it bifurcates here again, but the angle is bifurcate here, but I feel the angle is a little bit small, so I don't need this bifurcation here. Bifurcate here, but the angle is small, so I really don't need it. Okay, cut this off, and this branch here, I'm going to cut it back here so that we have a room for further ramification. Okay, that's that. So this side is basically done. Okay, so now we need to look into the top of the tree. So if in the end it looks like that, so you would have to cut it back to somewhere. I would cut it back here. Okay, let's try to draw this silhouette a little bit. It's like going here, like that. So I'm going to cut this whole thing off. Yes, I'm going to cut it off here. So that this is much more compact. If it go this way here, then this leaf would need to be cut off. Okay. This two branch, that is back branch, so it's okay. Okay, let's leave it now. I was trying to say this two branches kind of come out too close to each other, but at this point I don't think it's a big problem. There's a back branch which is good, give it some depth. So at this point, okay, I think this would be a good front to put the branch. We need to trim off a little bit of these long roots because I want to put it into this pot, which is appropriate for a cascading tree. So some roots are too long. I'm going to get this. Trim off some roots. Get this root shear to prune off some roots. Not a big deal to reduce the root too much right now. probably going to reduce some of the very big roots significantly. And leave some of the fine feeder roots. Some roots down there, but it's not very significant. But these roots are too long and too big. Need to trim it off somewhere to a fine root. Okay, here root, and trim it off to some fine roots. Then it's going to grow out more roots. Trim this off to a fine root, big root here. Some big roots we can trim off completely. This is also a very long root. We can trim off to some fine roots. In the future, it may direct develop into nice surface root. That would be good. This is the growing tip of that new root. Okay, let me wash the roots again and make sure that it's well taken care of. I just need to fit it into this pot. So anything that doesn't fit would need to be cut. So just going to cut some roots. Okay, like this. Some more. A lot of root that's growing downward. Okay, I think this would be fine. This root is growing in a strange direction. Need to cut this. Okay. Still need a little bit more room for the root to grow. I hope we have enough root to make this survive. Still need a little bit, cut a little bit more here. Okay. Okay, in the front there are still some a little bit more. I feel that I do see a tap root in the bottom. Question is, should I reduce it right now? This root is not that deep in the bottom, so I probably keep it. It's not like a straight root growing downward. I think I would keep it. I think this would fit nicely into this pot. Okay. So now the roots are trimmed. I'm just going to add soil into the pot. Before, let's see, this is a semi-cascade tree, so it could be very heavy on one end. The tree may need to be tied into the top. So that's what I will do. So first we need to get some wire. some thin wire to put on the bottom of the into the bottom of the pot. These training pots are very nicely designed plastic pots that you don't need to put mesh on the bottom. You only need to put these through the bottom, the wire through the bottom, and I'm simply going to put 2 of them in there. That should be sufficient to power it down. Put 2 of these wires through the bottom wire holes. There are these wire holes. You can throw it in there. Throw it in there. And that be good enough. Just make it flat a little bit, making the wire through the bottom of the pot before I put in the bonsai soil. I'm going to put some sphagnum moss in it to help the roots regenerate. Okay, and then we need to put some bonsai soil into the pot. So the soil I'm using is this. It's the soil is a third Japanese akadama, a third Japanese pumice, and a third USA black lava rocks. If you watch my previous videos, you may remember this bonsai whose name is Mary. I made the mistake of using a bonsai soil that's too good at retaining water. When you have a reduced root and reduced leaves, you have to be very careful to make sure the bonsai soil have good drainage. The water cannot stay in the pot for too long. You can always water it when it's dry, but if it doesn't dry, it's always very wet in the pot. It's going to rot the rest of your fragile roots, and it could kill the plant. So these soils, the bonsai soils, they basically look like rocks. It doesn't look like the normal potting soil you use, which is correct. It should not look like a potting soil. It should look like these tiny rocks, and which is very, very good with drainage. I hope this time it will not rot like the bonsai's roots. I hope Mary can still come back to us. It has basically looked dead, but I changed it into a correct bonsai soil. I hope it bounced back, but not sure. I'm going to put the soils into the pot. Basically make it into a mount and put the tree on there. Okay, this is the front. So the first time I repot this tree, I don't want it to be too much out of the pot, although in the end when you have a mature tree, it may lift up from the pot a little bit so that you can show off the surface root. I think for now I don't need that. I don't need it to be out of the pot too much. So I think this is the good height for the roots. In the end, we may be way more up like here in the future. A lot of roots that's still a little bit out of the root plane. Let's see. If we look at this, there's still some fine roots that's too high, which I can reduce them. And also this root is a bit high in the root plane, which I can reduce them. Okay, and it's going to grab the soil like that. Like that. We can still get the tree a little bit higher. We can get the tree a little bit higher. Okay, I think that would be fine. Maybe a little bit more. get these soil, push it in, it would be like that. Okay, now I can try to tie it. I think that would be the correct height. Like this, and this would be the front. It goes slightly towards you. This would be the front. Okay, I can try to tie the tree down and then add the rest of the soil in. Let's see if I can tie it down well. Okay, this is tied down on the back side, and I still need to tie it down from the front. I may just tie it the same way on this side. Looks like it's a front heavy thing. It's a front heavy tree, so I'm just going to tie it like that so that it doesn't topple on the front, and that will be fine, I think. And now I just need to fill in the rest of the pot with soils. Okay, now, although it seems like it's filled in, but in fact, there must still be enough space. There normally are still a lot of space under the root, so if you just use a chopsticks to just poke the soil would sink in. Simply poke it and the soil will just come in, go into the space between the roots and and you will have a much better fill. They're just going to sink in. Almost like quicksand. You simply poke them and they will get into the roots. Okay, looks like I can still add about 1 cup of soil. There is a root that's sticking up the ground. I'm just going to cut it. My theory is the chopsticks provides vibration, which allow the bonsai soil to sink down. So to just get into the space between the roots. I think this should be sufficient. The trees still move a little bit, but it's probably because it's so top heavy. Okay, so now we can get into the last part, which is refining this cascading branch. This branch is still not very refined. Let's see. There's some old leaves we can remove. That's easy because too much old leaves may give you a problem when you're trying to see the tree, the structure of the tree. Okay, this big leaf need to go. Then you can see the trunk better. This leaf need to go. So this leaf on the bottom need to go. Okay, this leaf is old leaf, need to go. Okay, these leaves, this leaf I just cut off was there before this branch even comes out. So it's very old leaves, and it's blocking us seeing the structure of the tree. That's why I remove it. This big leaf is also very old, and it's going to block the growth of this whole branch in the future, so I need to remove this one too. When you cut the leaves, there may be new branch coming out from the place where you cut the leaves, so it's also a good thing. I'm going to cut this very old leaf. The back branch is a little bit too heavy. I'm going to cut it here so that it's not that heavy. Like that. This leaf, I'm going to cut it because it's going in a strange direction. which go back on itself. From the front, from the back, this leaf is of course a very old leaf. I'm going to remove it. Okay, going to get rid of this leaf. Okay. I feel that this angle would be even a better front than this. This and this, I think this would be an even better front. Okay, now what do we do with this long cascading branch? That's the question we need to answer now. Okay. Two branches come out. Probably don't need them to both be long. This probably be a side branch. I'm just going to see what's in there and where should I cut it. I would probably cut it here so that this two pair of leaves may have a new branch come out. Okay, that's that. Now we have this branch. Which I think we can wire this branch a little bit and give it a little bit more movement. Let's see. I think so. It's still green and all. So I'm just going to try my best and wire it and see what happens there. I think these broadleaf trees, they are not as easy to wire as conifers because the branches are much stiffer. So only very young branches you can wire. This woody branch is quite difficult to wire once it turns woody. So I'm going to try to wire it. I do not promise this can be wired, but I'm simply going to try. And only need to put in one branch, one wire for the whole tree. And I'm going to try to bend the wire, bend the branch with wire. It's a little bit difficult, but this is the longest wire I have. The most powerful wire I have. So I'm just going to try it anyway. Mm, obviously, I want to bend it this way. Bend it this way. So I want the wire to come this way. Okay. Going to wire these two branches together. This side branch would be used to anchor the other branch. Okay, so once this is anchored, I can use, let's see. So once this is anchored, I can use this to wire the other branch. Try to bend it, but avoid all the leaves. Do not get into a leaf. Trying to be able to show how the wires go. Just go around the branches, avoid any leaves. Try to avoid to run into any leaves. Do not tie a leaf under the wire. ideally each turn of the wire should be 45 to 60 degrees. Okay, I think this is so much we can wire. I'm running into a softer branch that would be difficult to wire, but I will try to finish it. Okay. Okay, I think in the end, just let it turn back a little bit so that it kind of lock the wrench in place. Lock this in place. Okay. So these branches are obviously too thin to be wired with this big wire, but in the end I turn it back a little bit so that it's kind of locked. Now I just need to cut it from here. Okay. So I cut this. So this is nicely locking the branch. Now I will try to bend this long branch a little bit, maybe not too much, but a little bit, to give it some movement. Bend it as much as I can. Oh. Okay. You need to bend it until it starts breaking. Okay. So the more towards the tip, it's more difficult to break. So okay. Need to bend this a little bit, twist it a little bit so that the leaves start facing up, I think. Okay, so this is some movement I introduced to this branch. Again, this may or may not be the best choice for this tree, and the branch could break with this wire, but currently I'm going to go with this design and see how it develops. In the end, here is very straight, so it's not ideal, but in the future there may be something that grow out from here. I can add some interest to this area. And let me try to bend this branch a little bit more, slightly more, and see what kind of interest I can create. This is back, and I hear somewhere here there are branch breaking already, so I'm not going to break this anymore, but I'm probably going to rotate this a little bit more so that the leaves kind of face up. I wish I had a plier. It would be easier to rotate this branch, but oops. So I'm just trying to rotate this branch a little bit. So now the leaves are, a lot of the leaves are facing upward. Problem is here the leaves are facing downward. Need to correct that. Okay. Okay, now all the leaves are facing upward. Just create some downward movement. Try to bend this place a little bit more. Ooh, start to break. Okay, so now this is what I would do for now for this branch. Some bigger leaves can be cut off. To just show the movement of the branch a little bit. This leaf is too big. These two leaves are overlapping each other. Need to get rid of one. Maybe get rid of this one. This leaf is under that one, so under a branch, so don't need that much leaves. This leaf is kind of broken. Get rid of this one. Okay, this leaf is too big, too gigantic. These are fine. This leaf is going upward. Don't need that. Okay. So this is this tree for right now. Maybe for the rest of the year, we will just let it grow. Indoor, you cannot put this outdoor. If you put this outdoor in the winter, it's going to die. So currently, we will just let it go, and hopefully it grow for several months. It will have more foliage, and it's going to look better. There is a leaf down there, which is, we don't need it. Okay, let me do a quick rotation of this tree so that we can see what it looks like. So I think this is the front of the tree. If we simply rotate it, Ooh. Just going to rotate it. Difficult to rotate. Okay, so we should have a good view. Okay, let's wait for several months and see how this tree develops.